All righty, here we are. Welcome in and welcome back, folks, to the D3 spread option. We are part of the Voices in the Stands network. Make sure you're following us on X at Voices in the Stands. Just want to kind of right off the bat mention we were supposed to be live, supposed to be doing a live show for the round of 32 on X. Had a couple of technical difficulties, so I just went ahead and pre-recorded. I'm going to cover all the Sam games. Tons of awesome matchups to get to, so it's still going to be a fantastic show. And if you're watching right now, we appreciate it. Glad you're here. Hit the like. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel. And yeah, excited to get into it, Mikey.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, we feel bad about those technical difficulties. Turns out you gotta pay X now in order to go live. So, yeah,
Yeah.
that's a bummer. That's a bummer. You got to pay for that. Um, Anyways, yeah, looking back at last week, before we get into the fresh stuff, we had our best week on record yet between the two of us. We were both over 500. We combined for a record of 11-5. Uh, I went 6-2. You went 5-3. Head to head, I went 2-1. We both hit on some really good games here. Union, we hit on that one. The big win. Susquehanna, Pick'em, we hit. Springfield, we hit. The only one that we collectively missed on was the Grove City plus 6.5, which ended right there at 8. So weren't too far off on that one. Head to head, the ones that I hit were Wheaton on the huge 56.5. Chapman, who won outright, and then Crew might have had the best pick of the day, which was Framingham State plus 33.5, which was it was money the whole time. So yeah, we had a really great week.
Yeah, it was fun, man. It was good. As fun as it was, this is the week we've had circled. 16 games to get through, and man, we've got some absolute doozies. Just some fantastic matchups. I think there's 5 games that are a touchdown or less, and something like at least half the games I think are 2 scores or less. So um, some competitive spreads, some big spreads that I think we might have some live underdogs, which is potentially unusual for Division III to have some dogs that are live at some big spreads, but excited to get into it. And of course, I'd like to mention before we get into the show that we are a proud partner of Quarterbacks versus Cancer. And anytime, there you go, Mikey. Anytime Mikey and I have a head-to-head, I'm not going to call it a disagreement because we're a head-to-head pick. I'll say the loser donates $10 per pick per game to Quarterbacks versus Cancer, which is just a fantastic cause, and we want to continue to shine a light on those guys for all the great work they're doing. And without further ado, we will get right into it. Round of 32, right here on the Voices in the Stands YouTube channel. We got to start with Mount. I'm starting at the top left of the bracket, right? But Mount Union at home, hosting Muhlenberg, who, here's something interesting about these games, right? We saw it a little bit last year because it was the first time we had the expanded field. Muhlenberg's got a game under their belt. Mount's had, basically the bye, the second bye of their season now. Does that favor early in the game? Does it favor Mount? Does it favor Muhlenberg? I wouldn't necessarily expect rust to be an issue, but also if you're hot, it might favor the team that hasn't had the layoff. So, Mikey, you want to start us off on this one?
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I think, in this exact scenario with these two teams, I think it does favor Muhlenberg. They got that playoff jitters out. They got the speed of a playoff game out. They've they've understood that. They haven't had that ability for rust to set in. And just looking at Mount Union as a whole this season, they've had a lot of slow starts. I mean, they've had a lot of frankly lackluster first halves. I'm thinking of Capital, where they had a lackluster first half. Baldwin Wallace. So it's not like they've been super dominant early. And Muhlenberg's a team that you don't want to let hang around for sure. So getting right into my pick here, as I started diving into Muhlenberg more, I know we had him last week, but one thing that I kept going back to with a big spread like this is just how good they've been in the red zone this year. 92% of scores inside the red zone. That's a really, really high number. Just one turnover all year. And they've only settled for 3 field goals all year inside the red zone. That's 45 touchdowns. So when they're getting in the red zone, they're turning those trips into 7 at a crazy high rate. And that sort of stat, that sort of skill, when you get in that deep red zone, really lends me to think that they can hang around in here because you got to capitalize on those few opportunities versus a team like Mount Union. One player I wanted to shout out here was Dante McHaffey. He's a former quarterback at Muhlenberg who
Yeah.
he missed a few games, but he's come back and now he's playing running back. He's returning kickoffs. He played a little linebacker at one point. Just a guy, an athlete, the definition of just a dude, a stud out there. And he was leading rusher last week and the second leading receiver last week in their first playoff game. Scored a touchdown. So a guy like that, an athlete like that, you got to know where he's at on the field. I'm gonna go Muhlenberg plus 23. I think Mount Union wins. I don't think that's a shocker of a pick, but Muhlenberg, there's just too many points here. So I'm taking the points.
All right. Interesting. I don't know if I expected us to be on opposite sides to start the card, but that's looks like that's where we're heading. I mean, I've talked about this Mount team this season. This is our first real chance to really talk about them here on the show, especially against a quality opponent. Here's the thing about Mount. I'm not convinced that they are, elite national title contender, but that has nothing to do with their offense. To me, I have some question marks about their defense. Their offense has one of, if not the best, three-headed, big three, I guess you could call them, really in the entire country. Mikey Maloney has been awesome at quarterback. He is a true dual threat, leads the team with 8 yards per carry when he does tuck the ball and run. He's extremely dynamic. Darnell Williams is lightning in a bottle, home run speed. He's averaging 7.7 yards per rush. And then to me, maybe the best player on the team is Davion Grant, their receiver. This is a guy. Mount always does this. They always find a guy that looks like he's got a shot, right? And then it's going to get probably some rookie camp invites. To me, that's Davion Grant for them this year. He's got 711 yards, but he's averaging 18 yards a reception. I always said, if you look at a receiver's stats and they're starting to inch over 13, 14, 15 yards per catch, maybe go watch that guy play, because in my experience, those guys that have big yards per reception numbers, there's something to those players. And you turn on the tape and see this guy play, he's one of those. So I think, honestly, I don't trust Muhlenberg's passing game because I think Mount Union's going to score. And I don't trust Muhlenberg's passing game to keep up. And I think Mount Union is going to do their thing on offense. And I'm going to lay the points here with Mount Union at home. I just think that this is too much talent on the offensive side of the ball for Mount Union. As Mount Union pulls away on a team like this, desperation typically doesn't help the underdog in this case, and that's where Mount Union's defense tends to capitalize. So first QBs versus cancer head-to-head. I'm excited about this one. I'm excited about a lot of these games. I mean, I haven't looked at start times. I'm hoping that they're somewhat staggered. I know that sometimes they're not because it's just time zones, and sometimes we got a bunch kicking off at the same time. But I'm going to have my eyeballs on as many of these playoff games as humanly possible on this Thanksgiving weekend. I'm stoked, Mikey.
Yeah.
All righty, cool. First one under the belt. Here we go. Second game, huge game here. John Carroll at home hosting Randolph-Macon. I'll start us off on this one. We've talked about this John Carroll team. Nick Simptonfelter, one of the best quarterbacks in Division III, but best player on their team, another receiver, Tyron Montgomery. This guy is an FBS quality receiver, in my opinion. 13 touchdowns, almost 1,100 yards receiving already this season. Randolph-Macon, you look at their resume, best win, they beat Central 10-0. They beat Dickinson 48-34. What was interesting in that game is this has been a really good Randolph-Macon defense, but Dickinson actually threw for almost 300 yards on them that day. 4 touchdowns only, but their problem was that they also threw 3 interceptions, and that was the difference between Dickinson and Randolph-Macon. This front seven for Randolph-Macon reminds me a lot of like a DePaul front seven, very fast, not huge by any means, but they just get after it. They're cohesive. They move as a unit, and they get a lot of pressure on the quarterback and a lot of TFLs. So now we talk about weather a little bit, and we teased it a little bit early in the week. We talked about it, or before the show, I should say. Weather is going to be a factor in a lot of these games. So what I want to see, if I'm Randolph-Macon, I want to see a lot of that 12 personnel. I want to see some under center. I want to see the Randolph-Macon that we saw make a run to the semis, where they were just lining up and just hitting you in the mouth and just gashing you with the eye, the power eye. They do still run some under center, but I've seen it more spread from them this season. I like this John Carroll team a lot. I really do. But considering the weather, considering the approach that I expect Randolph-Macon to take here, I'm going to take the +9.5 for the road dog to stay in this game. I think John Carroll wins it because I think they have probably the 2 best players on the field with their QB and wide receiver 1, and that's going to be the difference in a playoff game. But I do think Randolph-Macon can push John Carroll around a little bit and be very physical in a game that's going to be like potentially mid-20s with some flurries. So what do you think, Mikey?
I think this is one of those lines that is right on. I mean, this is a really, really difficult game to try to catch an edge on. I think the weather is going to be a big factor for sure. When you get into Randolph-Macon here, one thing that really stood out to me right off the bat was 30 total turnovers on defense. That's just a massive number. 3 a game. Three freaking turnovers a game. That's got to be up there for one of the most in Division 3. Huge number. 19 of those are interceptions. So this is a team that is really good on defense versus the run and pass. They don't have a glaring weakness at all. 59 yards a game they give up versus the run, 2.2 yards per carry, and then all those interceptions against the pass. Yeah, this team don't have a glaring issue on defense. With that being said, though, John Carroll, for as much as Nick Semptemfelter and Tyron Montgomery get talked about, a big part of their offense that goes under the radar is their own run game. They have the number 1 and number 2 rushers in the NCAC, which is that's almost unheard of to have 2 guys that are 1 and 2 in the conference. That's running back Nemo Jenkins, who averages 78 yards per game and 8.4 yards per carry. And then Quincy Newsome, who's also at 64 yards per game and 6.9 yards per carry. These guys are just gashing teams. And I think that level of athlete on offense, Randolph-Macon just hasn't seen that caliber of athlete yet. I think it's going to be hindered by the snow for sure, but I'm going to lay the number with John Carroll. So this is back-to-back QBs versus cancer games. Home team, all the talent. Both these teams have playoff experience, but I just think there's too many athletes on John Carroll on offense, at least.
Fair enough. I mean, it's hard to argue with you. We both like this John Carroll team. I mean, this is a team that, potential dark horse to make a run and even upset some really, some really top teams. But yeah, I mean, I've got to respect the handicap there. I think the line is pretty solid, like you said. We'll see it's going to be interesting to see how the weather affects some of these different teams stylistically. We've got, all teams that get under center and teams that go, run a play every 13 seconds. So it's going to be a very interesting weekend, no doubt. All right, next game, heading down to the sunshine. I think it's going to be closer to the mid 50s for this one, and probably sun in beautiful San Antonio, Texas, closer to my neck of the woods. So I'll lead us off here. Trinity, Texas, the Tigers hosting Hardin Simmons, who, of course, come out of my conference, the American Southwest Conference, and both ranked, obviously. Hardin Simmons got as high as 5 before my Crusaders knocked them off a couple of weeks ago. So now they're 14. Trinity's 21. Their only loss in the season came at Barry, obviously a very good Barry squad that they lost to. Trinity, a couple of good wins that they had: 19-14 over Center and 31-14 over Maryville, which I think was their last regular season game of the year. Here's how I look at these two teams. Trinity's defense is a little better than their offense, and I think Hardin Simmons' offense is a little better than their defense. I wouldn't say that Trinity's offense is a weakness. I wouldn't say that Hardin Simmons' defense is a weakness. I just think that Hardin Simmons is a little bit, offensively tilted, and I think Trinity, leans on their defense a little bit. And that's kind of how it's been. I mean, Trinity's has had a good defense for years under Coach Urban, right? So that's just kind of the style that they play. When you look at this game, 4.5-point spread, Hardin Simmons on the road. These teams are familiar with each other. We've seen them play in the postseason before. I think the difference is going to come down to Kyle Brown, quarterback at Hardin Simmons, and Noah Garcia, who is the best player on the field, All-American running back for Hardin Simmons. I think this is a close game, but I think it's more like a touchdown game. I just think when you get down to it, you need a big first down. You need a big touchdown. I think Hardin Simmons, with those two guys at the helm, are going to be able to get that for you. And I have some concerns about the Trinity offense against above average defenses. Barry completely shut down this Trinity rushing attack, and beat them 29-6. So I don't think Hardin Simmons' defense is quite where Barry's is at. But I think they're darn good, and they're good against the run. So, I'm going to lay the number with the road favorite, which is always a little bit of a sticky situation. But I'm going to back Hardin Simmons here to win by more like, I think, a 6.7-point win. That's kind of what I'm feeling here. How about you?
Well, yeah, these teams did play a couple years ago in the playoffs. That was 2023 playoffs. That game went 20-6 in order of Trinity there. As we know, Hardin Simmons has a playoff curse. They haven't won a playoff game since the year 2000. I don't know. I think there's something in the teens amount of tries during that span. So it's been 25 years, and they've had a lot of good teams in that span. They've been the more talented teams in playoff games in a lot of those games, a lot of those chances throughout the year. So whenever you're trying to take Hardin Simmons in a playoff game to win, it's a little bit of a risky bet. And then taking them to cover said win, you're kind of doubling your risk there. But I co-sign almost everything that you say. I have questions about the Trinity offense. For me, that starts with their ability to sack their quarterback. As you look at playoff teams, protect their quarterback. You look at playoff teams, a lot of times their quarterbacks get sacked a very low amount. It's usually the top half of their conference. But that's the opposite for Trinity. Trinity quarterbacks have been sacked 23 times this year, which is tied for last in the SAA. And when you get into some championship level defenses, that's just going to be exploited, and that's going to really, really, really hurt you. And Hardin Simmons has 3 defenders this year that have over 9 or more TFLs. Those guys are going to be getting after it. I'm not sure that there's enough points out there for Trinity to score this game. So I'm gonna follow you. I'm going Hardin Simmons to break the 25-year curse and break it by 5 at least. Hardin Simmons -4.5.
Wow, we're definitely together on this one. To be fair, to Hardin Simmons, they have had to play some some really good teams in the playoffs for most of those, because they would always, we got matched up. Hardin Simmons would get matched up with Mary Hardin Baylor pretty regularly. That little Texas island. So they've had some teams in the past that if they had been somewhere else, they obviously would have gotten a win. But that's just so goes it, right?
Yep.
All right, cool. Here we go on to the next. Speaking of Barry, we got Barry at home hosting LaGrange, a rematch of a regular season game that ended 48-0 in Barry's favor. You and I texted about this one a little bit. Now, we didn't give each other's picks away because we don't like to do that until we're right here on the show. But I want you to lead us off with this one, because I don't know which way you're going. I know which way I'm going, but I'm very curious which way you ended up landing on this one.
Yeah, this one was it was hard for me. I've circled LaGrange, I circled Barry, I circled LaGrange, I circled Barry. I feel like this line is so good. Like you said, 48-0 earlier this season. So immediately my mind goes to, is LaGrange 15 points better? Are they gonna second time around? They've already had a playoff game under the belt. Can they cover a 15-point difference from what they had last time? Sometimes I think yes, sometimes I think no. LaGrange didn't impress me last week in the playoffs. They played a Framingham State team, which kudos to them, they played really well. But by all counts, they were more talented, they were more skilled, they were more athletic at majority of positions on the field, and they just couldn't pull away from that Framingham State team. And one thing that stuck out was that one of their star rushers, Caleb Galashaw, he didn't play, and I'm not sure his status, if he's going to be back or not. But they rely on him a lot out of the backfield. They both average over 4.5 yards per carry. Caleb Galashaw and Michael Hayes, and they combine for 110 yards a game. And without part two of that two-headed monster, they didn't have the same offensive juice. So I'm going to lay the number here. I think Barry's defense is too good. I think, this is going to be much more closer to that number than it was, 48-0. I don't think this is a 48-point gap. But I think Barry is just really, really, really good. I mean, this is a team that can make a run, and they're kind of flying underneath the radar. And they got two running backs there, Colby Sykes and Josh Rogers. They both get after it. They both average over 5.7 yards per carry. They're explosive. They're physical on defense. This is just a really, really good team. I'm laying the number here, and I don't feel confident about it.
Yeah, I feel pretty confident about it, and I'm going the same way, Mike. I'm laying the number with Barry as well. Look, when LaGrange is laying 30 some odd points in a game and it ends up being a 3-point game, your alarm bells go off a little bit. And I know yours did as well. So LaGrange has got to be able to run the football. And they averaged 2.2 yards a carry against Barry in the first head-to-head. So in total yards per play was 8.5 for Barry. So they completely dominated that game. I mean, to be quite frank, LaGrange is probably lucky that game wasn't worse than 48-0, because you let a team put 8.5 yards per play on you, and you're only averaging 2.2 on the ground, and you're a rushing team. Yeah, you're lucky it wasn't more. So I think this is one of those games. It's just a bad matchup for LaGrange, because it really plays into Barry's strengths defensively. Barry, by the way, they're 5th in touchdowns allowed this year in Division III. So this is a darn good defense, and that is, to me, the biggest jump that Barry has made from years past. Is this defense is playing really, really good, physical, stout defensive football. So I'm going to lay the number with you as well. And I also think Barry, this team, they're not going to. I don't see them overlooking them. Like they had to sit at home last week. They had her bye. They have been waiting for their playoff game, and here it is. And they don't care who's lined up in front of them. They're going to beat them as bad as they can. So I think LaGrange has got some serious matchup problems in this game. As much as I like some of their players, and they've got some really explosive athletes, I think they're going to have a hard time getting the ball to those explosive athletes in this game. And I'm laying the big number with you, Mikey. All right, fun. Here we go. Oh boy. First time we get to talk about the defending national champions, the #1 North Central Cardinals hosting Hanover. Mikey, I'll let you start us off. And what did you think of this Hanover team last week?
Well, I thought they were impressive. You know, they jumped out to a 17-0 lead, I think it was in the fourth quarter. They were in control of that game. I never thought, even in the first half when it was tight, I never thought that Grove City had the horses. Hanover was good on both sides of the ball. Their quarterback Ian Robidush, he's really good, and he's a really good game manager, and I don't mean that in like a slight towards him. I mean, he's really good at making the right decision with the football, trying not to put the football in harm's way. He's fine taking a check down instead of forcing something. He just seems like he puts his teammates in really good positions to be successful, and that's what you're going to need when you go into this matchup. One thing that we have to note here across the Midwest here is we have a sizable snowstorm system that's moving through the region on Saturday. Now we're recording this on Tuesday night, so this is all definitely subject to change. But as of now, we're talking 30 degrees, windy, and snow, and possibly heavy snow at times in Naperville, Illinois, during this football game. So that's going to play a major factor. But frankly, I just don't think it matters. I'm laying the number here. I think this number is honestly a touchdown too small. And you know, Hanover at their core is a bit of a finesse team. They're much more pass heavy than they are run heavy. Uh, and I think that's a recipe for disaster. I think if you're going to be successful against North Central, you got to be able to run the football and do it consistently. You got to be able to have long drives. You got to be able to keep their offense off the field for longer periods of time. And a team that's really pass heavy on offense, I think, is at a major disadvantage versus this team. It goes without saying how good they are. They 53 yards per game against the rush, 1.8 yards per carry. And North Central has allowed just 2 rushing touchdowns all season. And opposing quarterbacks have been sacked 31 times and complete just 46% of their passes. All signs point towards North Central. I think this is something like 49-0. I mean, I hate throwing that zero out there, but I think the snow and the weather just makes it almost impossible for Hanover to score on this team. I could see a goose egg here.
Whew, goodness gracious. Mikey, I hate that we've been aligned like 3 in a row now, but I'm with you. I'm also laying the number here. So I'll take the opportunity to talk a little bit about North Central, just because we haven't really talked about them. We haven't had the opportunity much this season because they haven't been any competitive games. So obviously Luke Leenan finally graduates. You know, he's I believe he's still on a roster in the XFL with the Arlington Renegades. Hopefully he breaks in, but all-time great, obviously Gagliardi winner, All-American, you know, record holder, #1 in passing efficiency last year. So a lot of people are like, well, what, you know, where are they going to go? You know, what are they going to do? I'll tell you what, this is a program at North Central that knows exactly who they want, the exact type of players they want to plug in. They're developing guys within the system. They're retaining guys, and then they're bringing in, here's a sprinkle here, here's a sprinkle there from the portal, and they're bringing in their guys. So they go get Garrett Wilson, former Oklahoma State quarterback, and now he's #1 in passing efficiency. So it's bananas. It's not supposed to look this easy what they're doing. 71% completions, 35-4 TD to INT ratio, and they've obviously got, you know, to me, an FBS caliber running back in Donovan McNeil, and they've got Skokna, who's got 20 passing or receiving touchdowns. And then to top it off, their defense is #2 in total defense in all Division III. So It's just they're on another level, to be honest. I kind of wanted to maybe think they weren't, but I turned the film on and it's clear these guys have reloaded. I'm not saying that they'll be impossible to beat because it's a football game and anything can happen, but they are a clear number one in the power rating for a reason. And it's been really impressive what they've built there. And yeah, it's going to be tough for Hanover. Hanover, just to give them their flowers real quick, I was impressed with their physicality. I thought that they looked really good. This is a very well-rounded, solid football team. I just think, you know, I David Soliday, contributor to Voices in the Stands, mentioned a couple of days ago about Roadbush, the quarterback, and I think he categorized him as a dual threat. And I think that's generous. I think that was a nice thing of David to say. He's not going to look like a dual threat on the field against North Central. I mean, this is a completely different level of competition than the Heartland Conference, obviously. So I wouldn't try being a dual threat if I were him in this game. Just get the ball out of your hand because it won't be pretty if he does. I'm laying the number 2, Mike. North Central defending champs minus 34 to kick off the playoff the playoffs for them. All righty, moving right along. Oh, this is a fun one. Hope hosting La Crosse, and there's some question marks here for La Crosse, right? I don't know if you got an inside scoop on any of the injury information. Did you?
Uh, no. La Crosse runs a tight ship, and they're not letting anything out. So what Cooper is referring to there is the quarterback situation at La Crosse. They have a really good starter. His name's Kyle Haas, and he hasn't played in 3 weeks now. And without him at the helm, I mean, just like any team, but especially a quarterback like Kyle Haas, who is, after Caleb Blaha, he's the next best quarterback in the WIAC. And without him, they're just not even close to the same team. It's just not even close. And they've got an excellent receiver. Their whole receiving core, they got 3 guys that would be the number one at most teams in the country. They are deep, deep, deep at skill position players. And as the season went on, when Haas was healthy, I really thought that talent wise, skill wise, La Crosse was the best team in the WIAC. They had that many guys on offense and defense, and it they might be the most injury riddled playoff team right now. They've been devastated on both sides of the ball, aside from just the quarterback position. On defense, they've started 16 different guys in the last couple weeks. All 4 DB positions are on backups in the last couple weeks here. So we just don't know who's healthy. If there was any team that needed a bye week, it was La Crosse. So this couldn't have come at a better time for them. And with all those unknowns, La Crosse being a road favorite, I think there's just too many unknowns to bank on Kyle Haas playing or them being healthy in the secondary on defense. Hope is a really, really good team, especially on defense. Defensive lineman Liam Danitz, 19 TFLs and 13 sacks. Both of those are first in the MIAA.
Wow.
And that's the type of guy that if you have a backup quarterback in there, he's just going to wreak havoc. It's the same thing that happened when they played River Falls with a backup quarterback. They have 18 interceptions as a defense, and their safety Owen Graham has 6 of them. Just a ball hawk out there. So all signs lead to, if La Crosse isn't healthy, I don't think they get out of here with a win. I'm going Hope +5. This was actually a pretty easy pick for me.
Yeah.
I just don't want to hitch my wagon to an unknown situation. But if Kyle Haas rolls out there, all bets are off. This is a whole new game.
Yeah. No, I'm with you here. I think this is one of those games that the models, that create these lines for us, Logan Hansen ratings and Massey ratings. There's no way they can account for an injury like that. I mean, it's not it's not feasible to do it that way. So pretty easy one for me too. I will say this though. I think this comes down to Hope's run defense. And I think they're capable, but um, can Lacrosse push them around and control the clock and win the game that way if Haas doesn't play? I don't know. I think that's what it comes down to. I tend to think it's going to be more of the same of what we saw with Lacrosse without their quarterback against good competition, and they're going to struggle. So I'm with you here. Give me the points, Hope plus the 5. And just a reminder, this Hope team last year gave North Central one of their most competitive games of the season on the road at Naperville, 42-21, and it was probably a little more competitive than the final score. So good team. They reloaded. Yeah, I mean, this is one, and it's at Hope too. So I mean, like this feels like a kind of a low hanging fruit, but I think it's still the right side, and I wouldn't be shocked if Hope won this game outright, just because Lacrosse is so banged up. All right, this is a fun one. I'll start us off here. Platteville at home, number 10 team in the country, hosting the Scots from Alma. Obviously, Carter St. John, we know that guy. Big part of QBs versus Cancer. 2,300 passing yards this year. Lost to Hanover, competitive game, 1-point loss. Not the best loss, if you want to be put in the, in the realm of competing with a team like Platteville. But then, the loss to River Falls, aging pretty well. So, and then they're good wins. They beat Hope, they beat Adrian. This to me is, I don't know. I mean, to me, I went with my gut here, and I think this is too many points. I like Platteville. I just think that Alma is kind of built to compete against a team like this. If this turns into a shootout, I like Alma. I also think that is it Uzelding? Is that how you say Platteville's quarterback's name? He's a little bit, yeah, he's a little bit turnover prone. So,
Yep.
I don't know how good this Platteville team is. That's literally what I wrote down. How good is this Platteville team? Because I can't figure it out. I don't. It's like I can't. Well, they played this team like this. They played this team like this. They won the WIAC last year, and I can't figure them out. So when in doubt, take the points. I think Alma is. They've got some playoff experience now. They expect to be here. I think that they feel like they can hang. And so, I'll bank on that confidence and bank on good quarterback play to keep it within the number.
Yeah, Alma's got more playoff experience. Alma is, whenever you're going to play a WIAC opponent in the playoffs, if you're an opponent who is not familiar with a WIAC opponent, and Cooper can attest to this, is sometimes you get a little bit of that shock factor. Same thing when you're going to Alliance. You're going to be talking about probably size that you haven't seen all year. You're going to be talking about a level of physicality that you haven't seen all year. Platteville at home, big stadium, big crowds, really just an awesome complex there. They haven't lost a home game all season. They're really hard to beat in that place, but almost not going to be shocked by any of that. They're not going to have any of that. They've played River Falls in back-to-back seasons. Last year, they were down 35 rip at halftime. This year, River Falls is better, and they take them to the wire. So it just shows that they're used to the size. They're not going to be surprised by that. And I agree with you here. I think there's too many points. So I'm going to also take the points, take Alma here. And this is an opportunity where I think an underdog is live. Because like you said it, I think if you said how Platteville is, a little turnover prone, true. And you can't really figure them out. I also can't really figure them out. D3 football has them as number 10 in the country. They're not that high for me. I don't think they're a top 10 team in the country. And, I think if you give them the benefit of the doubt, I would say you'd call them very adaptable. they play some teams, and you Seldon, he ran for 100 yards in one game, and they were basically running like RPOs where it was just him running. They were using him as a running back. And then there's other opponents where they're spreading everybody out, they're not huddling, they're going fast, and he's airing it out for 40 times a game. So they don't really have something that they just do. And maybe that's a good thing, but it's also, kind of, who are they? So there's just too many points here, and again, this is another game where 27 degrees, snowing, possible heavy snow at times. So when you get into a game like that, Alma has a great running back, Eddie Williams. It
Yep.
just means that points are going to be at a premium, and 13.5 is too many.
I'm with you. I'm with you. And thanks for mentioning the weather because again, I mean we could have some snow games, to be honest with you. It depends on what happens, but a couple of snow games would not surprise me. All right, we are aligned there. We need another QBs versus cancer game, so let's see what we got. All right, Bethel hosting the Co-Hawks, off of a nice win last week over Concordia, Wisconsin. So, yeah, Mikey, I want to know what you think first. I'm still kind of on the fence here.
I think this is a really good line, but this was one of my easier picks, and I'm going with the Co-Hawks to cover this.
Ooh.
This is a rematch of last year's playoff game. That game was 31-26 Bethel. I was at that game. It was a really, really, really good game. That game was won by Bethel's defense, and Bethel's defense is back and better than ever this year again. They've been suffocating of teams. But this is another weather game where you got 25 degrees. It's going to be really cold. Possible chance of snow rolling through the north side of the Twin Cities metro there. And I think, is better than they were last year. Bethel, I'm not ready to say they're better than they were last year. I think they could be as good as they were last year. I think their quarterback, Cooper Drews, has taken a big step forward. Last year, I kind of thought that he was a little bit of their he if they had a better quarterback, I think they could have won the national championship last year. Like, they were that good.
Yeah.
And this year, he's taken that necessary step. He's smarter with the football. He's making more accurate passes. And in their offense that they run, high tempo, the ball's in his hand. Every play's a run play for them. And it's just his decision, is if they're running him, he's giving it, or they're throwing something quick or taking a shot. So his comfortability in that offense has really taken a big step. has the ARC player, the offensive player of the year. The quarterback, Brady Kelly, completes 70% of his passes, 30 touchdowns and 6 interceptions. His receiver, Latrell Taylor, is his favorite target. He has 10 touchdowns to him this season. I think this has the potential to be a real shootout here. And I think a score like last year, 31-26, I think this is a copy and paste. I think it's copy and paste. Too many points here.
All right, fun. Okay, well, we are going to have another QBs versus cancer game. I like Bethel. I don't think Co is as good as they were last year. I actually, just kind of the eye test, I thought they were better last year. Funny here, because I've been waiting for a chance to back the ARC, because I've spoken very highly about this conference most of the season. But yeah, I think Bethel's better than they were last year. I think Co's not as good, in particular. And you talked about it. I think Bethel's defense has taken a real step. Just margin of victory. Last year, their margin of victory was 44-17. This year, it's 50-6. So these guys are dominating. Obviously, the 31-26 game from last year. I'll say though, dude, that game was nuts. I don't know if there was like 6, 7, 8. I don't know how many turnovers there were, because I just watched like the replay on D3 Zone earlier today. I didn't pull up the box score on that one, but there was way too many turnovers, and there were some wild turnovers too. So that game was an interesting data point, I guess I should say, if you're trying to make comparisons. Not that there aren't some comparisons to be made. There 100% are. And these two teams know each other well, obviously, but I'm going to lay the number with Bethel. This to me is a show me game for Bethel, because this to me is going to tell a lot of people, including you and I, whether these guys are legit contender territory. Obviously they're the number 4 team in the country. Definitely a case to be made that these guys are the best non-1 seed in the tournament. I think they might be in that territory. So we'll see here, because Co is not a bad team by any means. But if Bethel is a legit top 4 team, they're going to cover this number. So we'll see whether they are or not. All right, next game. Oh, this is a fun one, man. We've had a lot of back and forth about this one with some other people and different fans and all kinds of stuff. CCIW folks, and yeah, kick us off here, Mike.
Well, my pick's simple here. I'm going Wartburg +4. I would take Wartburg money line. I put my bracket out, whatever it was last week before the first round games, obviously, and I have Wartburg in my championship game.
Ooh.
And Waverly, Iowa is one of the hardest places in the country to play. Alliance, Ohio, Naperville, Illinois, and Waverly, Iowa. I mean, it's that hard to play there. They are. I mean, they're an animal anywhere that they play. Throw the ball down in a parking lot, they're an animal. But they are different at home. And the fact that Wheaton is a favorite, this line just kind of was bizarre to me. I mean, if this was a pick 'em, I'm taking Wartburg. If this was Wartburg -4, I'm taking Wartburg. I'm catching points. I find it hard to believe. And we have a temperature here that's going to have a real feel of 20 degrees and cloudy with some snow possibilities. All that just benefits Wartburg even more. Nothing more needs to be said about their defense. It's outstanding. Uh, Against the pass, it's outstanding. They're going to play some cover 3. They're going to play some cover 4. They're going to mix different zones. They're going to crush the front up front, and their front 4 down linemen, they are as good as any group. Yeah, their offense has been lackluster, and I think that's where this line is coming from. Is the models are saying, hey, Wartburg scores 32 points a game, and Wheaton scores whatever it is, 40, 50 some, and that's where that line's coming from. But this Wartburg defense is just something else. And I'm gonna roll with the home team catching points.
Yeah, I'm with you, Mike. Very much aligned with most of your points there, if not all of them. I thought this line was a mistake, to be honest. With this game being in Waverly, it just didn't. It made no sense to me. But in like you said, I mean, I would have respected if this game was made, a Pick'em or Wartburg, a short favorite. Okay, it's not that Wheaton's a bad team by any means. I just think there is going to be a massive difference in the trenches at the line of scrimmage and physicality, especially in a weather game. You talk about weather being a big factor in some of these games. This could be the biggest one because, I mean, we know Wheaton likes to throw the ball around. It might not be so easy. And then you add, two 250-pound gorillas breathing down your neck, in a blizzard. That doesn't help so much. So I think Wartburg is live for a couple of turnovers. I think they're live for a defensive touchdown in this game. And I think the physicality is going to be the difference here, not to mention the home field advantage, right? So I'm with you, Wartburg plus the 4, and very much aligned there. This is probably my favorite pick of the entire week. All right, next game. We head to the Perk. UW Whitewater hosting DePaul, laying 16 at home. And this one's interesting. I'll kick us off here. I went back and forth like 5 times on this game. Way back because it's such a tricky matchup because DePaul is a good football team, right? Great front seven, great against the run. The only time we've really seen them struggle this year was against the pass against John Carroll. So it's like, okay, well, is Whitewater going to pound the rock? Or are they going to have some, some wrinkles up their sleeve where they're are they going to come out and throw on early downs? I don't know. I really don't. I mean, we saw them do that a couple times this year, and those were some of their best performances when they came out and took a couple of chances. I don't know. And here I am. I'm almost flipping the pick in my head now. I think Whitewater's size advantage is going to be a little too much. I think that Whitewater will be able to kind of dink and dunk their way down the field. That's kind of what I see happening here. I think that they will just literally dink and dunk down the field. And I don't know if the Paw can score enough, because I think Whitewater's defense is going to be in playoff form. So I don't like this one. I'm not confident, but I'm going to lay the 16 at home. And I just don't think there's going to be a ton of points, but I think it's a low scoring game, maybe like a 24-6. What do you think?
Well, it's another weather game. Take a shot if you've heard that on this show. 27 degrees, snow, possibly heavy at times again. We got a big system rolling through. I'm not really sure who that favors in this instance. And you said this was a hard pick for you. This was one of my easiest picks. I circled it right away. DePaul plus 16. The data on this game, interestingly enough, we average Logan Hansen ratings model and Massey ratings model. This was one of two games where, and usually their models are pretty close. This was one of two games where the difference between them was drastic. It was like I think it was over a touchdown, over a 7-point difference. And Massey had this at like 21. And so that just alone tells you that even the data isn't quite clear. The data shares some of the tossing and turning that you are experiencing, Coop. So to me, this just comes down to this DePaul defense. I'm going to read off these stats. Take them as there might be some debate on how accurate these stats are, but this is what their website and the NCAC website says as well. DePaul, number one rushing defense in the country. They have allowed a total of 123 rushing yards all season, 0.5 yards per carry, just 4 rushing touchdowns, and that's 12 yards per game they're allowing on the ground. Obviously, this Wisconsin Whitewater team wants to run the football. Brian Stanton, outstanding, averages over 7 yards per carry. They're the leading rusher. And I can't sugarcoat it any longer. Quarterback Justin Klinkner for Whitewater, he's second to last in passing in the WIAC, and he just doesn't look comfortable back there. He's a young kid. He's going to be starting again next year probably, and probably the year after that. So he's only going to get better. But right now, in his first season as a starter, he looks like a rookie quarterback would in the NFL. He just doesn't look comfortable. It doesn't look like he sees the field very well right now. And he's got great weapons out there, but I'm just not sure how well he sees it. 18 touchdowns to 7 interceptions, under 170 yards per game on average. And if DePauw's rushing defense is as good as advertised, and Whitewater is going to have to go to the air in order to cover a spread this big, I'm just not sure that I wanna hitch my wagon to the Whitewater passing attack yet. And aside from that, their leading receiver, Tyler Vasey, all WIAC player, he left with a lower body injury in the last game, and his status is also unknown for this game. He didn't come back in that game. And
Uh-oh.
they have two really good receivers, but without Tyler Vasey, they don't use their tight ends in the pass game hardly at all. So without Tyler Vasey out there, they're really, really handcuffed with their weapons on the edges. So I just think this is too many points. Whitewater wins a really close game. I think this is like a 17-14 game.
Wow. Yeah. And I mean, I have so many of those points written down in my notes too. So, like I said, I really flip flopped on this one. Not my most confident pick of the show, but you got to pick one side or the other. So, another QBs versus cancer matchup. All right, next game. The Johnnies, St. John's hosting Monmouth, who has cracked the top 25, the Fighting Scots. All right, Monmouth. We talked about these guys a little bit. Turn the film on. Yes, they are a good team. Obviously, they dominated the Midwest Conference. They're number one in scoring defense in Division Three. Um, got some unusually good athletes on the edge for that conference. I will say, like edge players, defensive ends, some pretty fast guys, guys that make TFL sacks. Um, right. So I want to give them their credit there. I do think that their offense is going to struggle against this Johnny's defense. The only good team, or really like top team that Monmouth has played this year was Wartburg, and they scored 7 points, but they held them to 21. It was a 21-7 loss. But St. John's, right? Not to be, I'm just saying how I see it. The MIAC, I'm not overly impressed with anybody besides the top two teams. So, the only game we really have to really evaluate this team was the Bethel game. And obviously, they lost 17-10. Trey Feeney is putting up, St. John quarterback numbers against everybody except for that game against Bethel. He threw for 181 yards, no touchdowns, and 1 interception against Bethel. So this will be, next to Bethel, the best defense that St. John's will see this season, without a doubt. And, I mean, Trey Feeney, I'm not saying he's a bad player, but I don't know if he's, Severson or Erdman. Obviously, those guys were on a different level. So I'm not quite as high on St. John's as I've been. Obviously, Collegeville, super tough place to play. I mean, this is historic venue, just an awesome place to be able to play your home games. Obviously, again, I think both teams will struggle on offense at times in this game. I think Monmouth, if they're going to want to stay in it, Braden Deem, their quarterback, needs to use his legs, which he can, and he has a lot this season. I'm going to take the dog. I think it's 20 is a bit much. And I'll tell you what does scare me about this game when I'm taking the dog here. This feels like a game that's really close or not close at all. It really does scare me a little bit. So I'm going to take Monmouth to maybe even be in this game, cause a turnover, potentially be live. And this is one of those big, double digit 20-point dogs that I think might have a shot if they get a couple breaks.
Yeah, those are really really good points about this Monmouth team, and I like that you pointed out that they had played Wartburg back in week 1. So whenever you're coming from a small conference like that, the Midwest Conference, I think it's important for those teams to schedule tough opponents like that so that when you get to the playoffs, there's not going to be that shock factor, that speed, size, skill shock. You've seen it with a team like Wartburg. I think we saw a little bit of that if you look back. A very comparable conference to the MWC is the NACC. Their conference champ was Concordia, Wisconsin, who got lost 44-7 to Co. And I think that was kind of in play there. They didn't, Concordia, Wisconsin didn't have the opportunity to play a team like Wartburg. And I think, the size, skill, and speed is a bit of it takes you a half to settle in. So I'm glad that Monmouth had that opportunity earlier this season. I'm also going to take the points here. I'm going to co-sign what you said, that I think the dog is live here. Combination of factors. Um, St. John's runs what's called a West Coast style offense. That means a lot of three-step, a lot of get the ball out of the hands of the quarterback Trey Feeney's hands quickly, very pass heavy, rely on their athletes on the edges, and they have some dudes. I mean, Dylan Wheeler, Joey Gendrew. I don't know how to say that totally, but when you turn on the film of these guys, wow, these are guys that could get some NFL looks, both of them. They're fast, they're skilled, they got great hands, and that's going to create some issues for the Monmouth defense. But I think the Monmouth defense is just they just have too many guys out there. The defensive lineman Anthony Kokasis, I don't know how to say that one either. That's a tough one. 23 and a half TFLs. I think that was might have been number one in Division III football. He's all over the field on defense. And then another great defender on St. John's got to be Zach Frank, 15 and a half TFLs and 11 and a half sacks. Both those are first in the conference. So I think there's actually going to be more defense in this game than one may think. And with more defense means less points, and less points means that 20 is way too much.
Yep, I'm with you. 100%. I think that the Scots, I mean, they can't play scared. I'll tell you that right now. They can't go in. They've got to know, put the ball in the air a little bit, have some wrinkles ready to go. Because if you get down against St. John's, it's going to be really hard to catch up. So, cool. All right. Heading back to your neck of the woods, number 3 team in the country, River Falls, hottest team in the country, hosting Chapman, fresh off their playoff win against Whitworth. Talk about a trip. Talk about a difference in environment for the California boys going to low 20s and some flurries. I mean, holy moly, man. Look, you followed this team closely this season. You've been, I mean, as close to an insider as we've got for the WIAC. What do you think of this one?
I think that, the everything, all you take all the factors, the Top Gun offense, the speed of it, the weather, playing a team from Southern California, this all just screams River Falls. And River Falls has been really good to me on this show by picking their spreads. Just their spreads keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and they continue to cover them. So I'm going to lay the number here, huge number, biggest number on the show. But, you look at Chapman last week, they scored 18 points against Whitworth. I mean, that has to be the first thing you think of. I mean, if you score 18 against Whitworth, I mean, how are you going to keep up? How are you going to keep up? River Falls' defense, I can tell you right now, is about twice as good as Whitworth's, and their offense is a far cry from Whitworth's offense. And you're talking about the best offense in the country. So
Yeah.
how are you gonna keep up? Chapman wants to run the ball. They're going to try to. I'm guessing the game plan is going to be, hey, we got to limit possessions, we got to extend drives, we got to be really
Yep.
good on third down, and try to stay in the game and get the game into the third quarter. And try to be close, and then hope for something funky. But I just don't think Chapman's offense has enough firepower to stay with these guys. This is just it's 23 degrees. I mean, how many Midwest guys do they have on that team? Probably not many. I haven't looked at the roster in depth, but I gotta assume it's a lot of California, Arizona, Texas, like those southern schools in that area. Those guys are they're in for a whirlwind, man. And I think this is all Falcons here. Maybe something like, let me give you a score here. How about 45 to 0?
Oh, you had to adjust that second number there because I think you were thinking 45
Oh,
to 10 for a second.
I was thinking 45 to 7, but I thought I don't know if they're going to get 7. I just think, I mean, 18 points against Whitworth, and it just doesn't. I don't know. This River Falls defense has been looking really, really good.
Wow. Yeah, I'm with you. They have been looking good, and I think this River Falls team is a legit contender to play in the Stag Bowl this season. Love their offense, the Top Gun offense, like you said. That's one of the coolest nicknames in all of college football for any offense. I'm going to go the other way though, so we'll have another QBs versus cancer game here. I don't have a ton about this one. Here's what I will say. I think the weather thing can be a little bit overblown sometimes. This is knockout. This is a knockout game. This is playoff football. I mean, Chapman is playing for their lives. We've known that this team has had athletes and some size basically all year. They've been a little inconsistent. They haven't won by a ton of margin. I think ultimately the SCIAC is a little bit better than people realize. And I think that's more so the reason for all the competitive games. I think that is just it's a very balanced conference. I'm not saying
Yes.
it's the best conference in Division III, but I think it's very balanced.
Yes.
And I mean, we've seen teams. I mean, I remember when I was at Mary Hardin Baylor, we had the Redlands come to town, and we were kind of expecting to run all over them. I think we might have been down like 17-9 at halftime or something. And they just did everything right. They just did I mean, we blew them out by the end of the game, but they just did everything right. They were so buttoned up. They were so fundamental. They had all these little wrinkles, ready to go, well coached. It's good football. And I think that conference is a little bit underrated. Um, does this scare me? Yes, it scares me because of how fast River Falls can play and how quickly they can score. It's nuts. But I do think the weather actually helps Chapman here because of that offense, right? Especially if it starts getting wet and sloppy and snowy. That does not help River Falls here. So it's going to be interesting to see how the weather does play out, for River Falls as they go, because you want home games, but if you run the Top Gun offense, yeah, I mean, and maybe they prove me completely wrong, and they can rip a ball in the snow like nobody I've ever seen. We'll see. But another QBs versus cancer. Chapman plus the number plus 36.5. That's the biggest number on the show, by the way.
Huge. I mean, that's one of those numbers where it's like, yeah, okay, it's 42-7, but you still win. So it's
Yep.
like, yeah, that gets really difficult.
Yeah, crazy number. All right. Here we go. All right. I'm excited about this one. Very excited. Christopher Newport at home, and they are a 1 seed, by the way. There was a lot of discussion about that. A lot of people had opinions about them being a 1 seed. Hosting Susquehanna, who is fresh off a playoff win over Washington and Jefferson. All right. So let me grab my notes here. All right. So these teams have played this season once before. It was a Christopher Newport win, 41-27. It was on this very field, but Ehrlich, the quarterback for Susquehanna, only played a very small portion of that game. He only threw 4 passes. He was knocked out of the game. So I mean, you don't throw it completely away, but I think this makes for anytime. I would say it's more of a Susquehanna spot because of the revenge factor, and then you get your quarterback back. And I was really just impressed with Susquehanna, the way that they won the Washington and Jefferson game. They just looked like they had the playoff experience between the two teams, and I thought it showed. Christopher Newport, obviously, big wins. Susquehanna, Salisbury, they cashed for us. We both covered that spread against Salisbury. Explosive offense, but I've got some concerns about their defense against top teams, and that's where I think this one comes down to. I think Susquehanna has the more playmakers on defense, and I think that they are going to have some significant advantages against the Christopher Newport defense. And I'm taking Susquehanna at a pick 'em because this line is a pick 'em. So I think Susquehanna wins again.
Yeah, back-to-back pick'ems for the Riverhawks here. If you're talking about Christopher Newport, you got to talk about their offense, right? Quarterback Connor Berry, he's a legit, probably top 5 quarterback as far as statistics this season in Division III football. 34 touchdowns with 3 interceptions, completes 70% of his passes, 272 yards per game. His favorite target, Colin Hart, wide receiver. You talk about average yards per reception. How about 22 yards per reception, 118 yards per games, and 11 touchdowns? That combo between Hart and Barry right there is just deadly. And for a team like Riverhawks, for Susquehanna, you got to realize, hey, those guys, they're going to do what they do. You try to limit them. You're not going to take them out of the game. You just got to focus on your fundamentals. Stop the run. Maybe just make them air it out completely. Try to make them one dimensional so you at least get an edge on defense, on scheming, on game planning. You know, when you look back at that game earlier this season, another thing to note about that 14-point Christopher Newport win is Rashawn Lamont was coming back from injury, so he was on a pitch count. He only got a few carries. He wasn't a full go. He wasn't 100% like he is now, and it was driving rain. I mean, downpour. Field, you couldn't even see the field lines. It was all mud, and that's just not where Susquehanna thrives. That's not their type of game with their running back
Right.
and their quarterback. That's not where they thrive. And it's gonna be 46 degrees, partly cloudy. It's gonna be a beautiful day for football out there in Virginia. And I think this is a revenge game. I took Susquehanna last week. It won for us. I'm taking Susquehanna again. When I released my bracket, like I said 2 weeks ago, this was a game that I picked. I picked Susquehanna to beat W&J and then beat Christopher Newport. I have too many questions about Christopher Newport's defense. They allow 115 rush yards and 16 rushing touchdowns, and now they're going to play a preseason All-American running back.
Yep.
So yeah, I it might be a shootout. This could be another shootout where you're talking about first team to 40 or first team to 35, something like that.
You know what? I think Susquehanna wins this game by double digits. I think they win this game
Wow.
by 10 plus. Somewhere in that neck of the woods. I think too many advantages, and revenge games are big. It's a big deal. Motivation's big. Obviously, Chris, they're going to be motivated as well. But yeah, I think with healthy Ehrlich, I think yeah, I'm calling it. All righty. Okay, here we go. Franklin and Marshall, the Diplomats, number 16 team in the country, hosting Eastern, only their third season as a program, and here they are representing in the Division III playoffs. All right, so hadn't seen these guys play a lot, so I had to go find some highlights, had to find some film. Here's what I will say about Eastern. They're very buttoned up. Lots of QB runs. Leading rusher on the team is their quarterback, Brett Knabb. He's a gritty guy. And I don't mean that to sound cliche. He really is gritty. This guy goes and gets a first down when you need one on third down or on fourth and short. He goes and gets it. Very impressed with the coaching, the discipline, everything. They're doing the little things right from what I can tell. Franklin and Marshall obviously ended the year very hot. Wins over Carnegie Mellon, wins over Johns Hopkins. But I think they're a little bit fraudulent. I think that their stock is a little bit higher than reality. I think that not that they're a bad football team. They're in the playoffs, so obviously they're a good football team. But the Johns Hopkins game, for example, they were outgained 440 to 285 yards and won the game. Obviously, Johns Hopkins blew a big lead. Franklin and Marshall had everything go their way, made some big plays. Receivers made some big plays. Quarterback made some big plays in that game. 6 of their 10 wins have been one-score games. I'm taking the dog again here. First year in the playoffs. I'm taking them plus the 18.5 to stick in this game and fight. I don't think these guys are going to hurt themselves with penalties or turnovers or anything like that. So I think they're going to fight hard. And I think Franklin and Marshall is a little bit inflated value-wise, to be honest with you. I don't think they're as good as this spread. I felt like, closer to 2 touchdowns to me would have made sense. So I think Eastern sticks around here.
Yeah, F&M has been a really interesting team to watch because I don't think they can blow out anybody. I mean, I don't know if they could blow out Crown, who Wheaton played in the first round. They just, they find ways to win. I did a piece for d3football.com where we talked about biggest surprises and disappointments out of each region, and F&M was my surprise. because I think they can win a couple games in this tournament based on the fact that they just find ways to win. They've had a walk-off field goal this year. They had a 21-point comeback where they won it in overtime on a 2-point conversion. They had a game where Muhlenberg tied it with a few seconds left and went for two and didn't get it. They had another game where they had a defensive goal line stop as time expired, where they won the game by a score. So they've just, you nailed it. They just win. It's not pretty. It's not ugly. The stats are not gaudy. They don't lead the conference in anything. They just win. And teams like that, I think, will that can transfer to the playoffs, but it doesn't cover spreads and definitely doesn't cover 3 touchdown spreads. So I'm going to take Eastern plus 18.5.
Okay.
Eastern's an old school football team where they do the classic run the ball well, stop the run, and play good defense overall. They get after quarterbacks too. 150 yards per game through the air is all they allow. They have more interceptions on defense than passing touchdowns, which is wild. And they allow just 5 yards per catch, which is a super low number, and a 46% completion. So they do it through the air, they do it on the ground. They're a really physical team, and that MAC conference is similar to the SCIAC we talked about earlier, where it's a very balanced conference. So some of these numbers, you kind of got to take them with a grain of salt because there's 5 teams in that conference that are all equally matched opponents. So similar to the SCIAC. So sometimes you can't look too deep into those numbers, but that defense is real. And F&M, they're going to win this game, but I don't think they can blow out anybody.
Yeah, I'm with you, brother. I'm with you on this one. Eastern has gotten here by doing all the little things right. They're going to be, absolutely jacked to be playing in the playoffs as a third-year program. So I don't think, if we're at the end of this game and F&M's up 20, Eastern's going to keep fighting, and if they have to backdoor this, I think that's totally a possibility. But I'm with you. I'm with you. All right, next one, Salisbury, at home, hosting the Goals from Endicott. Salisbury laying 11.5 here, Mikey. What are we thinking?
I'm thinking this is a shootout alert. Shootout alert. I wish we had like some guns on the screen. Shootout. I mean, you want to see some offense here? Tune into this one. Great. We know what Salisbury can do in the running game. But what Endicott does in the running game is equally as impressive. They have this 2 running back system that they run. Brian Ferreira, 102 yards per game, 9.2 yards per carry. Not to be outdone by the other half of that 2-headed monster, Marquise Bridgewater, 76 yards per game and 11 yards per carry. These guys just gash teams. Some of that can be written off to some of the poor competition and specifically, poor tackling of some of the teams in the CNE conference. But you can't write all that off to that. They have athletes. And, I got a chance to watch Endicott a lot down the stretch in their games against Curry, especially. It was one I watched almost a full tape of and got a really good sense of the athletes that they have on their offense and their defense. Their offense is really, really athletic on the edges, but their defense, I have some conversations that need to be had, I guess, with some of their physicality on the defensive line. They kind of got pushed around by several opponents this year that had some good run games against them. I'm not super jazzed at the thought of them being able to stop shootout alert, being able to stop Salisbury very well. So I think this is a shootout alert, and I think Salisbury just has more offense. I don't trust Endicott's ability to stop the run. They struggled with it against Curry, and I think they might struggle with it here. This is a really good line, though. This will make me think about it for sure. I think Salisbury wins this by maybe 14. I don't think they can cover this by a lot because Salisbury's defense hasn't been very impressive either, but first one to 40 in this game.
All right, another QBs versus cancer. I'm on the Goals, man. Halfway because they might have my favorite uniforms in all Division III.
Yep.
Absolutely love the uniforms there at Endicott. But honestly, I think these guys have kind of gone under the radar and taken another step from some of the teams in the past. Some of the Endicott teams. I actually think they're better this year, and I'm not sure people realize that. Um, Most notably because of the way that they have dominated the line of scrimmage. Obviously, the Conference of New England is not, it's not the WIAC, it's not, some the ARC, but or the Centennial, but they've totally dominated the line of scrimmage. They are actually top 50 against the run. They're allowing 111 yards per game. Um, and you talked about the Salisbury defense having some holes in it. I do think this game 100% comes down to, can they slow down the triple option? Can they slow down the speed on the edges? Can they do? I don't expect them to dominate the way they did in conference at the line of scrimmage, but all they need to do is slow them down. And then Shea Lynch, quarterback at Endicott, he only had 2 games without a passing TD, and one of those was a loss to Muhlenberg. So I think some of the dink and dunk stuff is going to be there for Endicott. Some of the passing game will be there for them if they will do it. I think they will have to. And if they will, I think that they can slow them down enough. Yeah, I think 11 and a half. I'll take the 11 and a half here and look for Endicott to go to the air a little bit and stick within this number. And if it's a shootout alert, I like the 11 and a half even more.
Shootout alert.
Shootout alert. All right, last game. Here we go. Johns Hopkins in Baltimore hosting Springfield, who was my team of the week last week. Another 16 and a half. It seems like we're getting big spreads every week for Johns Hopkins, right?
Mm-hmm. That's exactly right.
What do you think here, Mike?
Well, I think this is a non-shootout alert.
Okay.
Slow pace alert. Slow pace alert here. Springfield, all Springfield does is cover spreads. That's all they do. And I think they're going to do that again here. 16 and a half. I'm taking Springfield. This is a really hard game to pick for me. When my gut reaction to this was Johns Hopkins. But then I had to think back. My gut reaction last week was Cortland to cover a similar spread, and then I kind of flipped my thinking to Springfield when I got to thinking about their offense and what they can do. And same sort of thing here. No team in Division III that I've seen this year runs a triple option as good as Springfield. The traditional triple option as good as Springfield. They have the most physical runners, the most physical offensive line, and they are so disciplined. When they have runs that are supposed to go off the hip of the tackle or the hip of the end, I mean, they are right there. They are right there. So you know that they're a very well coached team. But it's also about their defense. Opponents are just converting 27% of the third downs against Springfield. And that sort of situational football success, that is what keeps these games low. And that's what allows that Springfield offense to really take over games, is they're getting stops on defense and then they're converting those stops into 6-7 minute possessions that don't always end up in touchdowns. I mean, they don't really kick a lot of field goals. They'll get down there and go for it all the time. And sometimes success for Springfield doesn't even involve scoring points. It's just sucking up 6 minutes of time possession and taking possessions away from a team like Johns Hopkins. We know about Bay Harvey and Cole Crowdy, and Johns Hopkins, they're going to win this game. I have no doubts about it. I think they're just too skilled on offense. But this is going to be a barn burner, a really, really tight game. I don't know what the margin of victory is here, but it feels like it's maybe like 10 or 8. I mean, it's gonna be close.
Yeah, man. I said it last week. Springfield to me is the clear best triple option team in Division III. To me, these guys are legit. And how can I not go with my team of the week? I'm taking them plus the 16 and a half as well. These guys upset Cortland back-to-back seasons. Last year, if you didn't see that game, it was a snow game. It was one of the most fun playoff games of the entire 2024 playoffs. The Springfield Cortland upset, right? So, I'll tell you what, I'm really high on Johns Hopkins. But if Springfield finds a way to win this game, they're playing in the national semifinals for me. Like that's how good this Springfield team is. They're not a, you know, a dog and pony show. They're not, a team with tricks. They're a legit football team, and the defense is legit. I mean, these guys fly around. They move as a unit, and the triple option is just damn hard to stop. It's really, really difficult to stop when you're good at it. So, this is a game where Springfield steals a possession. They're potentially in this game to win, and not because Johns Hopkins isn't good. It's just because that's the nature of a great triple option team. They can beat anybody. So, I'm taking a plus 16.5. Obviously, I think Johns Hopkins wins. I think that they're going to have a little bit too much firepower, but if Springfield did win this game, look out, because I don't think they're stopping after next week. So I'm with you though. Plus a 16.5. All right. 16 games, 16 against the spread picks. What a show. That was a blast. Can't wait to watch these games come through on Saturday. Again, folks, we appreciate you watching. Make sure you've subscribed to the channel. Make sure you are hitting the little thumbs up. Does us a lot of favors. And share the video on X so a lot of people can see it. We will have it posted there and on YouTube. So, Mike, anything else?
Let us know your picks. As always, we want to hear from you guys. Who are we way off on and who did we get right? We have 5 QBs versus cancer games this week, so I'll be keeping an extra close eye on those ones. And maybe we should try this live thing again on X, maybe some other time, crew. Now that we kind of know what to expect. Rookie mistakes.
Yeah, I think we can get it straightened out. Hopefully next week we'll have 8 games to talk about. So I think that's good. That warrants a live show. So maybe we'll get it live on X next week. But for now, we got it done. We'll see you guys next week. And thanks for watching, guys.